Well, what you're suggesting is, and you've mentioned 3 or 4 key initiatives: cloud computing, digital identity, big data, and
Mobile payments.
And mobile payments. How many of these have had situations where SWIFT has had to or has co-invested into an incubation program?
So right now we have an incubation project going on in pretty much every one of these areas, more or less ambitious, depending. And right now it is our money. So I was talking to you about some more sizable money that the community has set aside.
Right.
So yes, now we have an incubator
Right.
at SWIFT
Right.
that gives us the opportunity to incubate these ideas. So we have a project pretty much in everyone. Some projects are purely research projects, like digital identity. It's a very vast domain, and the first thing you need to do is basically understand who does what there, what is happening, what are the standards. It's a domain where governments, especially in the United States, have interest. So that's more of a research project. There are some other projects which are quite more, going to the bottom line. The other characteristic of the incubator projects is that we always have a selection of our member banks involved.
And in some of those areas, like in mobile payments, for example, in a way you have to wait and watch while the industry works its way through. And in mobile payments, especially in a country like India, where you have a lot of investments, and the investments are not necessarily big in themselves. And the initiatives themselves tend to be very open system oriented because one would argue primarily because they're not funded well enough to be, say, for example, a commercial entity like PayPal. And you're watching all of these developments. If SWIFT is seen taking a position early in the game, you can actually end up SWIFT's position, basically.
I think it's a subtle approach, I think. And let me tell you about an example. So I wrote recently a blog on this called "Are We Going to Do It All Over Again?" If you look at the home banking systems of the banks that were developed in the early 90s and still exist today, so every bank today has a home banking system or a corporate banking system for that matter. And every one of them is different, and everyone has a different paradigm, website, security token, and things like that. It does cost a lot of money to the banks individually to do this, but these systems are not interoperable. At the end, is the customer happy with this? Having to deal with all of this? Probably not. So, and home banking is there, and I'm not arguing we should change anything, but I'm using this example to say to you, to apply it to mobile payments, which is now at the beginning. And my question to the banks, and it's a little bit of a provocative question, I readily admit that. Right. I'm asking, are we going to do it all over again? Because things are happening, and I'm not convinced that the financial community as a whole, yes, banks have their own initiatives, and we have seen some of them here, right. But as a whole, is the financial industry up to speed on this, as opposed to mobile network operators? I'm not sure. So what we are doing is asking a little bit of a provocative question right now.
But there will be destruction in the marketplace in the area of mobile payments. There will be winners and there will be losers.
Right.
In that sense. So if SWIFT takes a position too early in the game, you risk being associated with players who may not be around.
I totally agree. And at the moment, we are fostering the discussion. I don't think we are taking any particular position, except that what we think is that our owners, the banks, should have an active role in this ecosystem, number one, and we think it's an ecosystem.
Okay.
And
Are you involved? Are you actively involved, for example, in the setting of standards for mobile payments?
Not yet, not yet, but we are participating to a number of forums like the MOBI forum, where we are at a stage of pre-standardization. And in fact, as a matter of fact, we are involved in some very specific standardization aspects, but which are important for the mobile payments, such as the worker remittances. So we do have standards for worker remittances that are available today, and that can help, streamline a lot international worker remittances.
And in the area of big data, for example, lots of banks have big data. They're trying to make sense of that. But there seems to be also a need for greater investment in trying to build the analytics around the data.
Yes. It's a fascinating development, this business analytics that is fueled essentially by the enormous computing power. Also, the what I call the mashup that is available now on between many systems, where you can combine very easily data from, you can combine data, put it on a Google map, all in a matter of seconds. So you can, so the computing power, the massive amounts of data that we generate and that the banks have, and the capacity to mash up all of this, I think is an enormous opportunity for banks, as if you consider banks as digital assets of managers of digital assets, rather than banks as purely currency holders. It's we think it's an enormous opportunity.
But the work that SWIFT does in fostering the communication between your member institutions, what has come out of some of those discussions? Give us a sense of some of the crystallized ideas that is now something that you can work with today.
It has. So there are many examples. I will try to give you a few ones. Because the important thing I want to mention as well is that we work with our banks for the financial community, but we also have the same concept of open innovation within SWIFT, so that our staff can actually come with ideas and so on, in pretty much the same way. So we have numerous examples of small new products coming from our staff that are available to our clients, mostly in the area of, easier ordering, better, more innovative ways to order our products, for example. So
the fulfillment business.
Yes. So very sharp examples. In the context of the banks, I think let me just give you the example of one of the incubator projects, the EBAM. So we're building an EBAM hub, electronic bank account management hub. Electronic bank account, I don't want to belabor all the details, but it's a very complex process that can be quite cumbersome and manual. So there are standards for this that we have produced. But standards, we have noticed, are not necessarily always the total solution, right? So sometimes it's necessary to add to the standard some kind of a processing capability.
And deal with the points at which the standard it doesn't meet a certain need.
Right. So it doesn't meet a certain need. Sometimes, not everybody is on the same level of standards. So some kind of a central processing hub. That's what we're experimenting, for example, now, and hopefully we'll show it at Sibos.